Now, the next thing we wanted to talk about is the marijuana issue because in the United States, so many of the local states, and for those unaware, international audience, the United States, America is a country, but within it, there's 50 different states that are essentially 50 sub countries that have their own rules and stuff. Many of them have made marijuana, weed, or has very different names, legalized. And so they won't hassle you about it. And you can even go buy it in the store and sometimes pay with a credit card, even. But they're still illegal under federal law. And U.S. immigration law is federal law. So if you're an immigrant, a person who does not have a U.S. citizenship, whether you're a visitor here on work visa, tourist visa, or even a green card holder, marijuana is completely illegal and a felony essentially. So that's something that becomes a big problem that we run into a lot when people aren't aware of this. They assume because the state of California or the state of whatever says it's fine, they think it's okay for them. And we see these kind of issues pop up at all stages, not just from the beginning to even applying for citizenship. So that's a big headache that we see popping up a lot in our cases, Anya, more and more every day.
Right. So everyone has to be aware of this, right?
Yeah.
So if it was legalized or decriminalized on the state level, it's still federal offense under
Hmm.
U.S. federal laws, and U.S. federal laws govern immigration. Okay,
Yeah.
so when this usually pops up, right, at the naturalization stage, right? If you're, for example, if you're a lawful permanent resident coming back to the United States from overseas, right,
Hmm.
at the border, right,
Yeah.
on the adjustment stage, if you're immigrating into the United States and you are, for example, having your immigrant visa interview at the embassy, right, medical exam part, when your medical provider asks you this kind of questions about using marijuana,
Yeah.
not just use, everything covered, even people who work in this industry,
Yeah.
right, again in the states where marijuana is legal or decriminalized, it might cause problems.
Yeah.
So
That's
the
a
best
major one.
advice is just to avoid any
Yeah.
encounter with marijuana.
Hey, there was a famous case, and this guy on the news about it. I remember he had called my office up, and I said, we can't help you." And he went, "The only reason I could talk about it is because he went public with it." But it was a researcher doing serious research on marijuana. So, and he thought it was legal because he was like a well-known scientist in the field, and wasn't a user at all. It was into it, was just doing technical stuff. But they denied his case, and he's banned because essentially he was partaking in it. Now, even using is better than participating in the sale and distribution, even if it's legal or is research. And so it's something you have to be very careful on. But there is an exception for small amounts under the Immigration Nationality Act, Section 212. There's a small amount exception, but that gets more nuanced. I think it's like 30 grams possession or less. I got to double check that. But sometimes you might get arrested, and the arrest report doesn't have the exact amount. And they'll say, "Well, we don't know how much it was. We're just going to hold it in the worst case that was more than that minimum amount." But one thing that we recently seen is with the embassies and how they deal with it is a little more nuanced because obviously it could be considered, depending on proving the case, that it might be against the law in the country that you're in or wherever you are of using marijuana. But the embassies themselves, what we're seeing is that they don't necessarily deny a case if someone says they're a marijuana user. What in these cases before their embassy interview for a green card in particular for a fiance visa, there's a medical checkup that happens with a panel physician. And at that time, they know this or they do a test on, they figure it out, and they tell the embassy, and the embassy refuses the visa, but refusal is not a straight up denial. And the embassies, most of the time, won't deny the case and say there's criminal activity. They can, but they rarely do that. Apparently, there's a lot of work to do something like that. But they hit him on a medical situation, saying you're an addict under INA 212, I think A2 or something like that. And because you're an addict, we need to make sure you're healthy before you can enter the United States. They say, well, come back in a year, do another panel physician a year, and we might do random drug tests even throughout that time. And if you come up clear next time, then you're okay. So it's a weird situation how they deal with it differently in different places. That person may have problems applying for citizenship later, even. But it is possible to get through consular processing for an immigrant visa, green card case in those scenarios, but you never know. It depends on how the consular officer is going to deal with the case. So, you shouldn't use marijuana. You, especially in the immigration context, it could be a problem. But it on all aspects, as you mentioned, where it come up at the border, at the embassy, at the panel position, adjustment, at naturalization, every step it could be hit. And it's going to be a problem even if you're in a country where marijuana is legalized, people use it in a foreign country. It can still pop up for U.S. immigration issues. So something to be very careful of.
Right, and conviction is not necessary, right?
Yeah,
just
yeah,
just
exactly.
just the use, just like having plant at your balcony, this is enough,
Yeah,
right? This is enough. So please be very careful with that. If you're using marijuana or you have some encounter with marijuana and you have pending immigration case, you must talk with immigration attorney.